Hi again, I'm Stephen Wessner, CEO of Predictive ROI, and thanks for coming back for this week's video. And if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please just click the little icon below and then the bell next to it. That way you get a notification every Thursday morning when we upload a brand new video. And so let's talk about expectations. And what I mean by that is expectations with respect to your content. You know, I have a chance to sit down with business owners nearly every day. And increasingly what I'm seeing is, whether you want to call it anxiety, the rush, the lack of patience, and that all has to do with their content strategy and building their thought leadership and recognizing that it takes time to do that. It takes time to build their thought leadership and then to be able to monetize that content. Now, does that mean that at the onset of creating content, should they have a solid monetization strategy in place before they start creating content? Absolutely. But then also recognizing that it does take time to build the audience, to nurture your audience, and then to gain the audience's trust because you've poured so much of yourself into being helpful to your audience, that monetization and making that ask is a very logical next step. So I want to share just a lesson that has been mentorship for me that has been super helpful, and what I've learned from Drew McClellan, CEO of Agency Management Institute, as well as the host of the brilliant podcast, Build a Better Agency. So Drew and I just recently finished writing a book together. It'll be coming out in a couple of months, and we're teaching a workshop in January in Orlando. Sorry, very noisy car just drove by. And one of those key lessons is something that he taught to me years ago, and that was being able to understand and being able to think about the fact that when you sit down to record that video, that you're talking with an audience and talking to a single person in that audience at the macro level, meaning you don't know who they are. They're an unaddressable audience, meaning you can't go into iTunes or into YouTube and download your subscriber list and then start emailing them. They're unaddressable. And because of that, your whole goal should be just to be helpful to that audience, not trying to monetize at the macro level. They're at the macro level, they don't trust you yet. They might be in your macro level audience for a day or a decade. And so I think it's so smart the way that Drew has looked at that of, okay, my whole goal, realizing that somebody might be in my macro level for 10 years or more, that I'm going to do everything I possibly can, that I'm going to pour into them everything that I can in order to make them a better agency owner, in his example, in his niche. So no matter who your audience is, thinking about them at the macro level, what can you do to pour everything into them to be super helpful at the macro level, not how you can monetize them the first time that they listen or watch or read a piece of your content. So shifting your expectations that your content that is going out to your macro audience, that is not intended to first time listen, now buy, it's intended to first time listen, now I think you're somebody who I might want to pay attention to going forward. And realizing that that person might be in your macro level for a day or a decade, and that's 100% fine. Now, with that said, when you're talking with your macro audience, for people who have been in your macro audience, let's say for several months or maybe several years, should you offer up opportunities for them to trust you a little bit further by maybe opting in and downloading an ebook or a research series or an insights briefing or a case study or whatever? Sure, attend a webinar, maybe register for a free course. Sure, of course you should. And Drew would call that the micro level. That is really smart to be able to move then somebody from assuming you've got context to relationship to be able to offer up opportunities for somebody to go, yep, I want to go a little bit deeper. Then they go from macro down to micro. Awesome. And then there's a whole other layer or several layers of journey beyond that. So taking this great lesson that I've learned from Drew and then sharing that with you to really set your expectations. The next time that you hit record, it's not about selling. It is about being helpful to your macro level audience. So you pour the best of what you've got into them and realize that it might be a day or a decade, and then hoping that you've done your best work so that they will trust you enough to say, yep, I want to learn a little bit more from you, and then they move into micro. So I hope that that was helpful. Please leave me your comments, questions, concerns below. Your feedback helps me get better each and every week. And until next week, onward with gusto and double down.